Hey guys, welcome back to DASAR. We're almost at the end of 2021. I thought I'd use this podcast to recap on what we've been able to do at DASAR, which is a newsletter and a podcast, and then we've just launched DASAR Club. So in this podcast, I'm going to talk to you about how you can launch your own podcast, how you can launch your own newsletter, and hopefully you'll want to become a part of DASAR Club as well. So first thing, why did I launch a podcast? My idea was simple. The vision of DASAR podcast was to really bring and distill experiences of people who've been there, done that, into a 30-minute snippet. And so I've been fortunate. You must have seen a few guests come on my podcast where we've talked about money, about fitness, about productivity, leadership, resilience, and the whole lot, right? So the first part about podcast is, what is it that you want the podcast to be about? This should be something that's extremely meaningful to you. This is something that you are curious about. I'm extremely curious about personal finance, about fitness, and how to be better every day, right? And so that is what the focus has been about DASAR. Now, I've done about 34 episodes this year. I launched it on February 19th. And it has been a very fulfilling experience. Yes, I've had my share of rejections, and you will have to deal with that too. When you put yourself out there, you're going to have people come in and say, who listens to this? Why are you posting this to me? Why are you sharing it? Even you are not serious about this. I've literally had these feedback come in from people I know, right? And so you're going to face that kind of rejection, but you just have to go back to, why is this meaningful to you? So the next part of the podcast is, what kind of podcast do you want? Do you want an audio podcast? Do you want a video podcast? Is it going to be a 5-minute podcast? Is it going to be an hour long? Is it going to be over Zoom calls? Is it going to be in person in a studio? And so when I was thinking about it about a year ago exactly, I thought, the whole world during pandemic has moved over to Zoom calls. So let me actually go into creating a studio in one of the rooms of my house. And a big credit to my friend Rohan Vekhande. He runs the Fitster 5 business. He kind of came in and he said, I want to learn how to, do video recordings, video editing. So why don't we combine and we launch this podcast together? So a lot of credit to him over this year to have helped me bring me this far at DASAR podcast, where we invite a speaker and I ask them, very specific topic-focused questions, and distill the experiences of these people. People like Sridhar Shukla, Jaideep Doshi, Jaideep Merchant, and so many other folks, right? So the first part of it is, what kind of format do you want? It's easier to do on Zoom, but also the quality is not as good, right, as this that you might be seeing. So be very clear what kind of quality that you want, because it's going to affect how much money it's going to take. Doing over Zoom will not cost you much. You can take Riverside.fm, which is what I've used for some of my podcasts, where Nick Petrie was in New Zealand, Garrett was in the US. And so that cost anywhere between about 1,000 to 2,000 rupees in subscription per month, right? So you can use Riverside.fm, you can use MS Teams, and you can edit it using Adobe Premiere Pro or Descript or Happy Scribe as well. So another thing about DASAR podcast is I love to read, right? I love to read. I love to watch, but more so reading. So I was very clear that when I do the podcast, I also want transcription on my website. So the transcription is done through a software called as Happy Scribe. And this is again a few hundred rupees or few thousand rupees, depending on whether you take monthly subscription or annual subscription. But it'll really get you there about 80-85%, because of Indian accent, it doesn't necessarily capture everything. So you might want to spend some time editing it and then hosting it. So the next question is, where do you host the podcast? Well, you can host it. I've hosted it on WordPress. But there are various platforms where if you just Google, you'll find a bunch of them who make it extremely easy for you to do it yourself. In today's creator economy, with no code and low code tools, you can do things yourself. And so I've used DASAR podcast, newsletter, DASAR club as a way to upskill myself as well. What do I mean by that? I didn't know how to create websites. I've built dasar.in website by myself. Go check it out. Okay. I've used WordPress. I learned online over the weekends. I've spent a lot of time. I've figured out how to make it secure. How do you get SSL? How do you do hosting? I've hosted it on Bluehost. And so, it takes time and efforts, but there is enough content out there where you can just do it yourself if you are willing to put in the effort. So I host it on WordPress, and then the audio version of the podcast goes on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. So you can listen to it if you're a listener as well, right? So that's the thing about podcast. What has podcast gotten me? First, it has supercharged my network. I cannot believe the number of people who've messaged me saying, I love your consistency with which you publish your podcast every week. Okay. And the second thing that they say is, oh, I really liked this. You might also. So I published Nick Petrie's podcast on resilience last Friday, right? I got a message on Saturday from someone who I know and I respect saying, you might want to read the book on anti-fragility by Talib. Like, brilliant, right? Suddenly you see so much learning coming through from people who you respect and who you want to connect with. So the first part about podcast is it supercharges your network. The second thing about podcast, you're doing it for yourself. While I might be publishing only 30 minutes of the podcast, there's almost an hour to 2 hours worth of video recording that goes in it. And so I'm learning so much more from these people. There's so much to learn and form really strong relationships. So that's another thing about why you should launch your own podcast. The third part of it is upskilling. I did not know how to do video editing. I did not know how to transcribe. I did not know how to host. I did not know how to distribute, among so many other things. So what a podcast does is, if you are willing to put in and not outsource it, is you will learn a lot by learning on the job. So I think that's definitely something that I recommend you to do. What are the challenges? Distribution. It's easy to produce. It is difficult to distribute. You might find that we have just over 500 odd subscribers on our YouTube channel. But a lot of people, I've had over, I think, 1,500 hours of watch time by people on these 34 podcast episodes. I value every single one of them, right? It is very important, very meaningful to me. So, distribution, how are you going to distribute it? What's your edge, and are you going to spend on distribution? I haven't spent on distribution. As a matter of fact, I'm looking for someone who knows how to, like a growth hacker for YouTube subscribers. So if you are one or one, please connect them to me. Okay, we are looking to grow our podcast and our YouTube channel as well. So distribution is tough, and that is something that you might want to have a plan around. You'll obviously learn, but it has to start from you reaching out to your friends, family, work colleagues, and then, just be consistent at it, right? So that is something about podcasts. The second part of this podcast is newsletters. What are newsletters? I love to write. I love to read. I consume books a lot. I've read a lot of articles. And I thought, from 2011, I've been curious about fitness, about personal finance, and about how to improve myself, through frameworks, decision-making frameworks, productivity, leadership. I've operated in these fields for the last 10, 15 years now. So I've saved all those links of, audio, video, articles, web links, books that I had saved from 2011. So I thought, in newsletter, let me bring those curated reads to people who are like me, who want to improve themselves and who want the best of the best content, right? Because content is there. Even if you Google search it, you might not find the right content. So let me bring that to the people who are like me and build my own tribe. And it has worked wonderfully because I've gone back to those curated links and then I've read them again. So one, again, very selfish of me, but I've learned a lot in this. Second, just that art of curation is something that we have to all improve upon, because there's so much information out there. We have to be able to understand what's bullshit and what's good, right? The signal versus noise. So it's helped me do that better. It's helped me to become really good at editing. Whether it's a podcast, whether it is your own writing, you can take all the time to write and to curate. But how do you distill it down to a punchline? How do you distill it down to 100 words? How do you distill it down to a tweet is very, very important. So this art of editing is something that you learn. And if you just be consistent at it, you'll become better at it, right? So that's the belief I'm operating on, that we are smart enough that we will learn by failing and by improving over a period of time. So in this newsletter, what is it set up on? It is set up on a simple MailChimp. It costs a few hundred rupees a month. It takes a lot of time. Don't have to be graphic heavy. In fact, what you're trying to focus on is what is the open rate. You send it to 50 people or 100 people. How many people are actually opening it? How many people are clicking on the curated links to read those articles? How many people are forwarding it to other people, right? So if you haven't already signed up, please go to DASAR.in and you'll find my newsletter over there. We have a decent group of people who have been enjoying these podcasts. We have a click-through rate of over 50%, which is not too bad, which means my tribe is formed, right? And I'd love for you to be a part of that tribe as well. In the curated reads, you'll find content on fitness, on personal finance, and getting shit done, so productivity and leadership. This finally brings me to the last part of this podcast. What is DASAR Club? DASAR Club is an online community of doers, people who want to up their game. One thing that I've come across in my life is with thousands of supercharging conversations with people who've built things, who've done things, who've achieved fitness, is that they operate in a triangle, right? And each part of the triangle feeds the other. And here's the DASAR Renaissance framework that I have come up with. And so my hypothesis today is that people who I know who are really good at what they do, okay, and these could be founders, CXOs, professionals, whoever they might be, if they are good at one thing, they also tend to be good at other things, namely managing money, personal finance. They understand the importance of money. Money is not everything, but it is a very important part to be financially independent, because it propels you in another orbit, right? You can do things, you can be more impactful than what you are, right? You are not only looking to live a life, you want to leave a legacy. If you want to leave a legacy, you have to take risks. You can take risks when you are financially independent, right? So personal finance is very important, and these top performers, the 1% of the top performers in the world, they are action oriented. They take action. They don't just think, they don't just intellectualize, they take action. They know they might not take the best action, but it is something to move forward. And they will learn by doing, right? The second part of it is personal finance. Like I said, you have to manage your own money. You have to know where you stand, and you have to build a nice 5, 10, 15 year plan. Okay, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? And then the last part of it is fitness. I know so many people, founders, who probably spend 10, 15, 18 hours working in a day, 7 days a week or 6 days a week. And it's very decision making, very high pressure situation, but they are still the fittest in their company. And I was like, wow, that sounds awesome, right? And why can't I be fit? And so I was unfit 2 years ago. What you see today is probably I've been at the peak of my fitness that I've ever been in my life. I'm 37. It's taken me 2 years to get here. But what I want to say is that, these people make it a point that they do 3 to 4 workouts a week. They manage their nutrition, the food intake that they do, and they are very conscious about their health, because they know they need to manage their energy. If they are not fit, if they don't manage their nutrition, it affects their work and what they can do, or it affects one part of their life, which could be family, friends, social circle. It could be anything. So what you want is a balanced life. How much energy do you have? So you can get more energy just by doing 3 workouts a week. With this in mind, we've launched yesterday the 90-day Get Fit Bootcamp. Go on DASAR.in, sign up for it. We kick it off next Sunday. You are going to go through this program with other people like you, and we are going to make it fun. The only thing we promise is not a 6-pack, right? Not a bikini or a beach body, but rather you being consistent on your fitness and making a routine at it. I think if you can do that, that is the building block for 6-pack down the line. It is possible, but you have to start somewhere, and unless you are consistent, right, 3 months is not going to get you there. Can you make this a way of your living? Can you become consistently fit for the rest of your life? Imagine all the things you can do if you had the energy, right? Would you pursue a side project? Would you, launch a podcast? If you want to be a part of this, please join us now. That's my ask from you, okay? Call me up, reach out to me at dd@dasar.in. Lastly, have fun. It's end of the year. We are still in the festive period. Christmas is around the corner. New Year is around the corner. Be healthy, be conscious, do things, push yourself, set some really good life goals for 2022 and beyond. And if we can play a small part in that journey, and the thing would be more fulfilling for me than becoming a part of your journey of self-development. I'll see you then. Thanks.